Hello everyone, how's your Easter weekend going? I hope that you're all doing well. Well, on today's episode of Northern Vinyl Guy, I've got something a little bit creative to do for the Easter weekend, so stay tuned and we'll see you on the flip side. Hello everyone, Daryl the Northern Vinyl Guy coming at you with an Easter weekend video. And as I noted in my intro, I'm going to take kind of a unique approach to this video. So I know that in the past, lots of people have, taken a word and wanted to just spell it out using their album collection. For example, if you use the word kitchen, you would take one album from your collection, starting with the letter K and then one with the letter I, etc. Spell the word kitchen using your record collection. But I know that some people in the VC don't necessarily like doing that. It's a little boring, perhaps for some. I think it's great, but I'm going to be taking a little bit of a different approach on my video today. A few weeks back, my buddy Joe at Racer Records, or On a V, made a video in which he spelled out the word spring, but kind of did it with a different spin. And so that's what I'm going to kind of do on today's video. So I'm going to spell out the word Easter, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to, for each letter of the word Easter, I'm going to have a word that is associated with Easter that starts with those letters. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to show a record with that word in either the song title or the band name. So, yeah, I know it sounds a little bit long and convoluted, but hopefully we will, get to the understanding by the end of this video. So, stick around, enjoy. Once again, I hope that you've enjoyed your Easter weekend. My two boys did a scavenger hunt and collected all kinds of Easter eggs and things of that nature. For perspective, my family is not necessarily the most religious of families. We do the Easter egg hunt, but we are not of religious affiliation. But I thought that this video would be kind of fun to do nonetheless. So, with that in mind, each letter of Easter, as I mentioned, I'm going to come up with a word that represents Easter, starting with that letter. So first is the letter E, and I just mentioned it actually as part of this video. What do kids like to collect at Easter time? Well, they like to collect eggs. And so I have two records in my collection in which the word egg or eggs is featured in a song title or the album cover. So I'm going to start with this Switched on Swing album, which is just a compilation, and it's by the Kings of Swing Orchestra. They kind of remind me of, Jive Bunny and the Master Mixers or that kind of thing, where they do a whole pile of medleys with songs in it from the 40s and the 30s and stuff like that. Think of In the Mood or Chattanooga Choo Choo, things like that. But on the back, the very last song medley on side 2 has a song. The second last one in the medley is called I'm Putting All My Eggs in One Basket. So what a better way to start off this video. The word eggs, putting all my eggs in one basket. That's what kids do. They go around, they collect and try to fill up their Easter baskets as much as they possibly can. So, Switched on Swing, Kings of Medley Orchestra. That is the first one, and putting all of my eggs in one basket. All right. I didn't mention for each of these words I'm going to be showing, I don't think I mentioned it, I'm going to be showing 2 albums per letter or per word. So secondly, I have Ministry's Psalm 69 album, which, if you are not familiar with Ministry, they are an industrial band industrial metal band from the 80s through to the present, although they don't do as much material today. But this is called Psalm 69. Now, another name for this particular album is Psalm 69, the way to succeed, or the way to suck eggs. I believe is the name of the album. It's kind of an alternative one, but the way to succeed or the way to suck eggs. Very different. If you are not into industrial music, I think I mentioned this in a previous video. This to me is kind of a gateway album into industrial. But this particular album has famous song actually off of this is either NWO or New World Order, and Jesus Built My Hot Rod spent quite a bit of time in the early 90s on Much Music and MTV. So Al Jorgensen and company, The Way to Succeed and The Way to Suck Eggs, otherwise known as Psalm 69 by Ministry. All right, next we have the A. And so when I think of Easter and I think of the letter A, I think of the month, which is the month of April. And so I have 2 tracks in my collection with the word April in it. The first of these is going to be coming from Bobby Darin, most famous in the 50s and 60s, notably for his hit track Mac the Knife, which is actually on this particular Atco album from That's All, but there is a track on here called I'll Remember April, which starts off side 2. So think, I don't want to call it crooner music, I would just call it like, soft music or rock and roll to some extent, but I guess you could call it a little bit of crooner music. Bobby Darin. As I mentioned, this is the one with Mac the Knife on it. But the side 2 track, I'll Remember April. And then some contemporary music here. Could also be considered R&B, maybe soft music. And that is Dionne Warwick. And ironically, Easter is in April, but so is April Fool's, or April Fool's Day, which is April the 1st. So, two common events that occur, at least in the North American society: April Fool's Day and Easter, which falls, of course, on this long weekend in April. So, a little bit of Dionne Warwick. If you are not familiar with her, great stuff, R&B, soft. I'll Never Fall in Love Again is probably the big hit off of this album, which is a self-titled one on TVP Records. All right, here we go. The letter S. And the letter S I'm choosing, even though, as I noted earlier, I'm not a religious person or anything by that means, but other people that celebrate Easter often associate it with the concept of salvation. And one of my favorite bands from the 1990s, of course, the Cranberries. This is a compilation collection that was done, I think it was in... this is a 2020 pressing, by the Cranberries. Dreams, the collection, and they did a song called Salvation. I apologize, I haven't taken this out yet, but the closing track on here is called Salvation. Sadly, we lost Dolores O'Riordan a few years back, unfortunately, but classic tracks on here include Linger, Dreams, and of course the hit song Zombie, which was then redone by the Bad Wolves a few years ago. So here we go, Salvation, the closing track on the Greatest Hits album. All right. Now, these next 3 albums are actually going to be of Canadian content, and there is a band from Canada, and they have what we would call an umlaut on their name. Think of Motley Crue. They've got that letter over their E, I believe it is, and Frozen Ghost has an umlaut right here over the O. They're most known in Canada for Pauper in Paradise, Dream Come True, Round and Round, and there's a few songs from another album, but they also do a song on this one called Selling Salvation. So once again, the S in Easter is salvation, so we have Selling Salvation by Frozen Ghosts. All right. Now, T, the letter T, I'm going to use the word truth. Obviously, Easter is a time for kind of resetting and Lent and trying to get those good deeds in. And of course, telling the truth would be one of those things that people would be considering over this Easter long weekend. And I'm going to be looking at Canada's possibly one of the top 5 most famous singers from Canada of all time. If not top 5, top 10 for sure, would be Tom Cochrane. This is his album, Mad Mad World. This is one that has Life is a Highway, Sinking Like a Sunset, Washed Away. But it also has a song on here called Emotional Truth, which is the second to last song on the album. So Emotional Truth, Tom Cochrane. This is a great album. If you haven't checked it out, do so. I also included it in a video not that long ago, my 1001 songs and albums that are missing from the 1001 albums book. This was one of them, spoiler alert, but do check that out if you haven't. And a second Canadian band is the band Toronto, and they do a song called Start Tellin' the Truth on their Get It On Credit album. So Toronto, as I mentioned, Start Tellin' the Truth. Not necessarily a hit song. The big hit song on here is Your Daddy Don't Know. So if you haven't checked that one out, definitely do. So this is a great album from a Canadian band that you don't hear too much of anymore. All right, the E. We are going to go with eternal or eternity. I kind of included the two together. And I think one of the most famous songs of all time with the word eternal in it is probably the Bangles and Eternal Flame. I don't have the 12-inch album. I don't have their album, but I do have this on 45. Of course, my buddy Rob at Northern Revolutions, one of his one of his favorite, female bands of the 1980s. And then we have a kind of a hybrid singer here with country music, soft rock, pop rock, that kind of thing, 60s and 70s. And that is the best of Vicky Carr. Most notably, her famous songs would be It Must Be Him. This is a greatest hits album, but It Must Be Him. Another one is The Lesson, and Can't Take My Eyes Off You, and With Pen in Hand. However, she does a song that is on this greatest hits album. I don't know if you can see it just over here, and it is called Eternity. So once again, if you haven't checked out Vicky Carr, like I said, she's kind of a hybrid singer, country and then pop, and I'm not going to say rock music, but definitely this softer stuff, 1960s and 1970s. But Eternity. So we've got Eternal Flame and we've got Eternity to wrap out the second E in Easter. And then last but not least, of course, if you have kids or you've ever done this as a kid, you have hunted down eggs that the Easter bunny has dropped for you in your house. Well, another word for bunny is rabbit. And I think one of the most famous songs with the word rabbit is probably White Rabbit by Jefferson Airplane, I do not have the Surrealistic Pillow album, so I went with the next best thing, and that is their Greatest Hits album, or in the case of this, the worst of Jefferson Airplane. So White Rabbit and Jefferson Airplane. I'll show you the backside here, but there's White Rabbit right about there on the album. So that is on the RCA Victor label with the old-fashioned, dog and the Victrola on it. So Jefferson Airplane, worst of White Rabbit. And I will close this video off with a musician whose name has the word rabbit in it, although spelled a little bit differently with 2 T's, and that is Eddie Rabbitt, better known for his song I Love a Rainy Night. I do not have that album. However, I do have this one, Step by Step, which I picked up recently at a thrift store. So if you like country rock, Eddie Rabbitt is the way to go. Or just straight up country. 1970s and 1980s, right there, Eddie Rabbitt. Check it out. All right, so I hope that you all enjoyed this video. I tried to take a different approach to this by, as I said, spelling out the word Easter, coming up with a word for each letter of Easter that represents Easter, and then finding an album which met those criteria. So if you want to give it a shot, if you have some time, feel free to take this idea and utilize this as your own. But other than that, if you are new to my channel, I'm always looking for new subscribers. Please give me a thumbs up. Definitely click that subscribe button and leave a comment down in the section below what you thought. And if you are a returning viewer to my channel, always look forward to your feedback and your comments. Always appreciate your support on my channel. And until next time, we will see you, and take care, everyone.